Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, 3 HR Trends to Implement Career Pathing for Employees. I am recording this webinar, so if you would like to access it later on, you are more than welcome to do so. And it'll be available, usually later in the day or tomorrow morning. And we also send out an email as a reminder to those in our database that it is available with a quick link, and it's typically found in our library. This webinar, what I'd like to do is allow you to answer questions throughout the webinar, but I would hold off answering those questions until the end. And this webinar typically is about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we leave about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. My name is Linda Janak, and I'm the CEO and president of TalentGuard. I'm happy to be here with you today and sharing some of my insights that I've learned having deployed many different software and consulting engagements with a variety of different innovative companies. Just a quick note, TalentGuard is a full-service, competency-based talent management software company delivered via the cloud. And so if you want more information on that, you're happy to reach out later on and learn a little bit more about us. So employee training is evolving with the use of curated learning experiences. This is really about, when I say the curated learning experience, it really is the combination or the integration of classrooms, online content delivered over a variety of online and mobile platforms, massive open online courses, gamification, social media, reward systems, you name it. And this evolution of the curated learning experience, which I think is a transformation in and of itself, is enabling employees to finally personalize their learning experience at their own learning pace while collaborating and sharing expertise with others who might be interested in topics that they are. By empowering employees to become collaborators in their own learning experiences, companies can finally foster a culture of career development and personal growth. With that comes increased engagement and ultimately the ability to minimize the talent gap that so many companies are experiencing today. In a paper written by Deloitte entitled "The New Organization, Different by Design," it's a wonderful report and I highly suggest you download it if you haven't already. They discovered that after 3 years of struggling to drive employee engagement and retention, improve leadership, and build a meaningful culture, executives see a need to redesign or re-engineer the organization itself. With 92% of the participants rating this as a critical priority. And that's just massive. And if you think about your own organization and the need to re-engineer, and if you did a survey, I'm sure the outcome would be similar. And in this paper, what they are putting forward is what that new organization looks like. And the findings is that it's one that's built around highly empowered teams. That seems pretty obvious. But it's driven by a new model of management, and it's obviously led by a breed of younger, more globally diverse digital leaders. And so we as organizations have to come up with strategies to figure out how are we going to keep up with that pace of change. In a fascinating study done by IBM, and when I think of IBM, I think of them as, a spectacular learning environment where they have been having formalized and informal learning programs, I think, since the beginning of time. Well, in their own study of their own internal environment, paradigm, they validated over this longitudinal study that learning is the strategic enabler of change. And it's an indispensable tool that supported all of their new initiatives, reskilled their workforce, and prepared them to address key market shifts and organizational transformations, such as those that we're going through right now with on-demand learning anywhere, anytime, and social. What's remarkable to me as a leader, because obviously I tried to put learning and training first as a fast and growing company, but IBM spends over $574 million annually on its internal employee development initiatives. I found that IBMers log more than 28.6 million hours in training and education, and that's traditional and non-traditional. And that's roughly about 50 hours or more in training per employee. That is a significant investment in the power of learning to improve engagement and retention. Yet, even with investments like the one IBM and others are making in learning and development, companies are still struggling to crack the code to build a sustainable culture of career development and personal growth, and one that directly increases engagement and closes the talent gap. Well, why is that? Well, I believe that there are 5 workforce trends that are causing havoc in the employee engagement space. Now, I read a great article in the training magazine online called Closing the Gap by Transforming the Learning Experience. And in that, the authors wrote about an excerpt from the book called The New World of Work, From Cube to the Cloud by Terry Maxwell and Tim Huline. And I went and bought that book, and I found it extremely fascinating as they really talk about 3 trends in impacting the employee learning experience. And I've added 2 others just based on what we've seen with our customers, and I want to explore those a little bit here. The first one is the demographic upheavals. The workforce is young, it's more diverse, and it's incredibly digital. From the moment they're 1 or 2 years old, they're holding iPhones or some type of electronic technology in their hands, learning. And this younger generation, they work and learn differently than past generations. We were learned to learn everything first and then go apply it later, where they're learning on the fly through trial and error. And this is dramatically impacting how our companies operate now, not just in the future. And with millennials now making up more than half of the workforce, they're bringing a whole set of new expectations. They're looking at rewards, more purposeful work. They want to be constantly learning and focused on development. Even in my own work environment, they want a dynamic career path. They want progression, and it's not just up, it's across, and then some. In addition to that, in several of the clients that we've been engaged with, baby boomers are working into their 70s and 80s. So companies are challenged to figure out, how do we enable that important demographic to decelerate in their career rather than go straight to retirement? So finding out how to satisfy all of these different dynamics is a daunting task, as I'm sure you're experiencing in your own work environment. Secondly, work has been fractionalized. Routine work has been outsourced, broken down into smaller tasks. Staff is overwhelmed because we're hiring fewer full-time people. Pundits are now talking about the gig economy, meaning employees going from one opportunity to the next without full-time employment. I used to refer to that as the transient workforce. So I like the word gig economy better. It sounds more sophisticated, but it's one where there's going to be a constant rotation of talent in and out, and that was going to be difficult to manage. Careers have been virtualized. With cloud technology, work has moved from the office to the cloud. or from the cube to the cloud. People can work anywhere. They can work from home, they can work from their car, they can work on vacation. Video streaming and other innovative technologies keep us connected and give us the feeling that we're face to face, because we can have online streaming videos of our staff out in the field, even though we're thousands of miles apart. Talent is global. The fractionalization of work and the virtualization of careers has made talent truly exportable. Forget about outsourcing. Look at crowdsourcing. I mean, we use it in our business all the time, especially for creative projects. That means I, as an organization, can get the best, the smartest talent, and I can actually compare what that talent looks like before making a choice. I'm not limited to my backyard in Austin, Texas. And for those that embrace this new concept of the new world of work, comes a new opportunity to succeed with no boundaries, no buildings, and no fear. That requires, a lot of different thoughts of how we manage talent going forward. And then obviously the rate of change. Innovation is increasing day after day after day, and it's difficult to consume all this new technology. Ideas are plentiful, applications are being consumed like water. It's daunting to attend a trade show looking for some simple solution only to be inundated with technology that you've never even heard of. And it seems to be all the rave, and you're wondering, wow, where did I miss out? And it's going to continue to accelerate at that pace. So these workplace trends have a lasting and profound impact on business. The rate of change has outpaced the ability of many employees to adapt. And this has resulted in a huge mismatch between one's job or career expectations and the skill or knowledge required to fulfill those. If you look online at Monster or Career Builder, Indeed, LinkedIn, or even your own employer site, you'll see that jobs exist. Businesses, our clients are desperate to fill those requisitions. The challenge is that employers like yourself are struggling to find employees with the right skills and attitudes to get hired, to get in the door, and then to grow. So organizations will continue to struggle with this gap unless they move beyond the conventional approach to employee development. It's no longer about getting the key and fitting it in one hole and that one key opens that door. We have to prepare employees to build skills for their current job, for an intermediate next step, and for the future. We have to move beyond expecting employees to learn the job as they do it. We need to be more proactive in exposing them to learning and development opportunities that help them build knowledge, skills, and abilities for the future before it's needed. We need to shift away from training employees for a specific job. Instead, let's think about training employees on specific competencies and experiences. For example, instead of training an employee to perform a marketing specialist job, what if we train that employee in the area of, let's just say, innovation, as an example? Well, that particular competency or skill, however you want to refer to it, is going to be needed across many roles in your company. It might be jobs within product innovation, sales strategy, customer success. The list could be endless. So instead of preparing the employee for one particular role, let's prepare them to adapt to many roles, making your talent pool richer and more diverse when we need them for the right role in the right country at the right time. The only way that we are going to be able to attract and empower our employees to be passionate about their career is to help them customize and actively seek out a personalized, curated learning plan that gives them the knowledge and the skills to develop on their own terms, when they want to develop, how they want to develop, and when. Now, I read another paper, or I think it was the same paper actually, in Deloitte's paper, The New Organization, Different by Design. They indicated strongly that too few leadership programs were designed on a foundation of research, clear priorities, and assessments of needed leadership thinking and outcomes. Based on all the work that we've done with our clients, I strongly agree with that statement. The challenge has been figuring out how to bring all of the important learning components into one cohesive, integrated, and easy to understand process that gets employees excited. When these pundits advise that the way to achieve grand outcomes is through data and evidence and science-based approaches, it really makes someone confused. These are definitely not terms that get the employees excited and motivated. What powers employees is the ability to gain new experience and to do it in such a way that feels as natural as walking, feels as natural as eating or resting. In other words, it's not forced learning, rather it's organic. It's an organic experience that happens almost as if we don't expect it to. So how do we bring assessments to measure learning effectiveness and research-driven content to personalize the experience, and the blended learning programs, whether they be micro-learning or classroom or online or whatever that learning program might be, and intensive coaching together to help employees shift in and out of different roles? And how do we close the talent gap and the huge gap in the knowledge of the next generation? How can we as organization apply new approaches to training and education to encourage our employees to pursue new paths to success? TalentGuard sees 3 trends that can enable this corporate shift. These trends all support the implementation of an all-encompassing career pathing program that will transform how employees learn, how they develop knowledge and skills, and how they gain experiences internally. Now, these 3 shifts require a new mindset, and they focus on visualization. And I am defining that as using tools to present the learning journey in an encouraging, engaging way, allowing them to see mapped career paths before them and the journey of those who came before them. Personalization is the second one. Self-directed learning experiences that personalize the learning and development journey of each employee based on their aspirations, their interests, their skills, and more. And the third one, gamification. How do we make the learning consumption process easier, more efficient, fulfilling, and rewarding? And how do we bring the 3 of those together to get into the new mindset? And companies just now are beginning to, I guess, accept the new employer and employee social contract, if you will. And it's one where employees can easily explore careers, jobs, and employers online. Glassdoor and Salary.com are good examples of that social contract. A new breed of companies like TalentGuard are emerging and have adopted this new mindset, fundamentally rethinking what learning and development mean in the context of business. And I'm really delighted to share our take on this new mindset. So trend one, I'll just leave the slide here for a minute. I won't read to you what it means to us. And I like this quote, which focuses on the user and what the user deems important and how one needs to create a visualized user-centered experience in order to foster the learning process. Now, I love this, this image because it really helps me visualize how the continuous learning model depicts the true nature of what employees and organizations grapple with on a daily basis. In that immediate sense, we must have our eye on learning today. What do I need to do to support my success in the moment? That's that point of need learning, similar to point of sale. We have that intermediate time frame. What do I need to grow in my current role beyond the minimum expectations to be effective? And the transitional one, how do I grow my career internally? What kind of business relationships do I need to form? What kind of skills do I need to gain? What kind of experiences do I need to be exposed to in order for me to be happy and engaged and to want to stay with my company over a longer period of time? Now, today, hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent on supporting each one of those buckets individually. And it's even bigger when you try to combine them all together. But we don't yet really have a good, seamless approach to bring it all together in a way that is visual, personalized, and allows that gamification. What we do today, and that's a result of where technology is that we'll, as an organization, purchase a learning catalog in hopes that the employee will scour through it to find something useful to help them overcome a challenge or a career obstacle. But as a former career coach, I should say I'm a lifelong career coach, when I would work with employees and see that they had access to all the learning, they maybe used 1 or 2 or 3 items out of the catalog that had maybe 400 different options. So how do we move away from that to something more effective? And I believe the foundation begins with a strong competency or talent framework, like the one from IBM Smarter Workforce or HRSG, or you might be using some other one like DDI or Lominger or Mercer. There are a few out there that are very powerful, but it needs to be vetted and it needs to be solid and it needs to provide information in all the areas that are going to support a curated learning experience. When you have normalized and standardized data, we can see the competency innovation, for example, might be used across 5 job families and 47 job roles. With a vetted model, like the one that IBM has, your company can, quote unquote, replace guesswork with precision. And I'm impressed because with their pedigree of over 25 years of researching their framework and having multiple sources and multiple updates is one of the core reasons we've partnered with them to deliver data in our talent management system. Do you need a comprehensive system such as this? No. But if not, your life's going to be a nightmare, quite frankly, because it takes so long for you to build a framework that your company can operate on. So why not leverage an architecture that will accelerate your time to results, your time to learning, your time to development? Because really what we care about are the engagement accelerators. And until you build your foundation from the bottom, your behaviors and your functional competencies across your job models, across your proficiency levels, what we really want is help with how do we interview people the best way? How can we serve up adaptable coaching tips based on somebody's learning development and learning style? How can we tell curated learning journeys through somebody's career plan? How can we serve up SMART goals with learning links? And then if you're using performance, help people write effective comments and tell whether they're angry, whether they're mediocre, or whether they're happy as they're writing. You have to have a foundation first. It just will not work if you don't. So it's important that you look at that as a first step when building out and creating your learning architecture. What a strong framework will give you is the ability to be transparent with employees on what is required to be successful in the job role. So for example, it's even beyond employees. If you're using a standard job role profile to hire people, and then you're using an assessment to test them against that job rec, why not say, here's what you're being hired for. I'm going to onboard you to that. I'm going to do performance to that. And I'm going to enable you to develop your career to that or assess your skills against that. That's extremely important. So for each role, you can tell the employee, here's the target level of proficiency that I expect you to have. And now the employee can go in and then assess their skills against that profile or against that target to see if they meet it or not. Now, that's still, self-driven, so we could have our own opinions in there. And the way you objectify that data is to allow other assets to be included in that talent profile. For example, if you have a 360 feedback tool turned on, how can that automatically populate your talent profile with the proficiency level that all of your multi-raters agree you have? Right? We have to think outside the box about how all of your different talent initiatives tie together without losing that personalization. It's just one example. I could go on and on. So TalentGuard has an innovative solution that enables employees to continuously develop in their careers. They can build their career history. They can build their career future and see how many skills, experiences, and qualifications are required in a given role. They can look at their gaps. They can preview a curated learning journey. They can access mentors, apply for vacancies. It's an aggregation of and the culmination of a talent framework and a learning architecture being delivered in a visual way to enhance the employee's experience. This is just one view. There are many that I could show you. So it's important to think about how your employees can engage. Let's talk about the second trend, personalization. And really, to me, this is about adaptive learning or being able to serve up a different experience for an employee as they change their talent profile, for example. And instead of crafting the learning plan, how do we curate the learning experience based on that personalization? So as I spoke to a moment ago, for personalization to really occur, and I'm talking about the kind of personalization when you're on Amazon Prime and you've been shopping with them for a while, it starts to know what you like based on your purchase habits and can serve up other things that might go in your basket or your shopping cart. The same happens for TalentGuard or any other vendor out there. Once we know what your values are and how it compares to the organization's values and your interests and your qualifications and your skill profile and your experiences and your preferences, the list can go on and on. It can be your TTI assessments and your Myers-Briggs profile. Once we are able to pull that into a cohesive view, once we have some level of aggregated information about that employee, we can then begin that as our starting point for personalizing the learning experience. If we don't have this type of information, we're just dictating the same thing to everyone, no matter if they're a poor performer or an expert, or a basic learner or somebody who could coach people all day long. We can't adapt the learning plan or the learning experience or curate one if we don't first understand the learner. So you've got to have some type of way, some mechanism to aggregate that information. And once you have that, then as we begin to monitor the employees' learning, outdated practices can be replaced with a personalized experience. And I really think about behavioral economics to encourage better and more informed decisions. Based on this, I'm going to do that adaptive learning, as you will. So should a manager, for example, give employee 15 options for communication training? That's just like me going on Google and typing communication training 101. Or would it be better to have the manager and or the employee select from one or two options that best match their learning style based on their unique gaps and their interests and their values? Now, Thaler and Sunstein refer to this as choice architecture, and they define that as the practice of influencing choice by changing the manner in which information is presented to people. And the only way that we can do that is by knowing information about the learner. So presenting employees with smarter choices will increase their participation in the learning experience, and completion rates of the learning task at hand will be much higher. And TalentGuard applies personalization in two ways. One, we automatically serve up career matches based on the information we gather about the employee over time. And secondly, the learning experience changes dynamically as the employee gains higher levels of competence or experience. Our vision is to include AI, artificial intelligence, over time to catapult these efforts as we actively work in this area. So for example, how can the technology automatically recommend career paths that we've not even thought of, because we may have combined 2 or 3 different things together that we didn't think made any sense, but because of these smart algorithms, they can find that. How can we get to that level so that it has applications, not just for B2B, but for B2C, as an example. And another example, then how can a specific career path support that continuous learning experience? So once something is served up to me as a potential match, how can I look at it, see where my gaps are, and then automatically serve up a curated learning plan, suggested mentors, see where I'm at, and then track how those gaps close over time, and it be a little bit more predictive in nature? Well, you have to do that through personalization and visualization. Now, the traditional corporate training approach, whether in the classroom or via e-learning, has not proven to be highly effective. There's too much information to absorb in a very short amount of time, or too much information to absorb over a really long period of time. Current learning is based on concepts like we used to do in school, cramming for an exam. We store it in our short-term memory, but it's most often forgotten. When it's forgotten, it cannot be applied, and this is a wasted learning experience. So Exonify and Vado, their approach to learning is really about microburst learning, training bursts. and in which they can serve up information several times daily or several times weekly or several times monthly. It just depends on each employee, right? And how can it be relevant and salient information in a digestible chunk so that I don't have to sit in a classroom or sit online for 3 or 4 or 5 hours throughout the day. And I really like how they depict here their vision for a continuous learning cycle, where it shows, multiple different inputs and multiple different learning happening over time, where that learning can be applied and transferred on the job through on-the-job, application. And we're applying that knowledge when it's needed on demand. And then we can learn to be influential leaders through that process. And I'll share on a little bit more on this momentarily. But the third trend, gamification. And when we think about gamification, there's a lot of definitions out there, but to me, it's a motivation strategy that is used to improve performance and engagement. And we see a lot of software coming out in this area. Now, TalentGuard in this area, the way that we think about gamification, as one example, is because we can track an employee's role history. For example, Beth Tyndall, when she was a marketing assistant, she gained 12 skills in that role. And because of that, she gained 220 points. As an employee, right, this motivates us to gain, it could be points or levels. We could get recognized on a leaderboard, compete with other employees, drive social engagement, you get it. But what gamification really does is it helps the organization close talent gaps. Why is that? It's important because I can put certain points higher on critical roles that are hard to fill, skills that are hard to develop. I can pick and choose strategically how I want to foster and reward employees based on the organizational demands or competitive demands. Now, if you think about your own career and I asked you, hey, Deborah, how many skills did you develop in your job this year? Your answer would be, what? I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, I went to a training course. Yeah, but how many skills did you develop? Tracking that type of information has been hard up until now. And then think about this. What if you went to your CEO and said, hey, John, we as a company developed 2,054 skills over this time frame in these areas. That's incredible. And think about that for a minute. What could you do with that information? Well, you can do a lot. Gamification supports a growth mindset. The more skills that employees are empowered to build, the more competitive your company will be. How can it help you? How can it help your employer brand? How can you use it to improve a specific area or an area of weakness, say in customer satisfaction, by dedicating these rewards and these learning paths in different areas of your company through gamification? We could say, instead of spending $1 million on learning in sporadic areas, our weakest area is financial acumen. Let's dedicate a significant portion of our training budget to that area, because we now know as a company it's an area of weakness, which means it's an area for competitive exposure. So gamification, as we said, can support the new mindset by providing a guided experience or process for achieving goals. So for example, you could say, what is it like in the day in the life of this career? It could be a simulated example of what it's like to be in a career. And so when you're looking at, do I want to move in this path? Or if I have chosen to move in this path, I can really take on the job. I can see what it feels like. And then I can decide, do I really want to go here? And the reason why I think this is extremely important is, as a career coach, I used to work with a lot of lawyers and doctors. They'd spend, $50, $60, $70, $80,000 to get a degree. Then they'd get in the job because their family expected them to do for a year or two, and then they'd quit. It didn't matter if they didn't have another job because they were so miserable. So how can we help students? How can we help new employees, new hires, people in transition? Focus not just on the shiny coin, but what it will be like to succeed or fail in that role. Give them a chance to try it on. In addition to that, how can we help employees learn in microbursts? Whether we serve it up in a development plan at your pace throughout the year, throughout the month, whatever it is, how can we do it in a way that's useful? And where we're going is, how can we serve up a real live interaction with a real live career coach on demand when you need it at the time of need, so that it's no longer just video. We can support that real, true interaction. Well, first what we have to do is, or what you have to do is curate your playlist, and that's your company playlist. What competencies are important to you? What type of coaching do you want to enable? Internal coaching, career coaching, executive coaching, performance coaching, business coaching. Do you want to have a reward system? And what do you want to incent? Not just giving cards for employees for showing up to work. Do you want to use audiobooks and simulations in classroom training? And a lot of times you have to go curate all this information yourself, or you can use 4 or 5 different learning providers, or you can use a company like TalentGuard that's already curated a lot of this, put it in a competency model, and can serve up best practices based on the experts in the industry. So you can save time and money. And companies like IBM and Deloitte and others have published many studies about linking learning with employee retention. And we sent out this infographic a couple of weeks driving up to the webinar, and I just think it tells a good story. In one study IBM conducted in its own organization, they concluded that when given meaningful learning and development opportunities, 79% of IBM employees were likely to stay with the company for at least 3 years or longer. We have concluded studies with our own and customer base that are pretty similar. We found that curated learning paths delivered in a visually stimulating way, personalized to the user, and offers interactions with relevant rewards keep employees for 4 years or longer. And that's what this infographic was based on. And if you you'll have access to it either this presentation or on our blog. But that's a big deal from a retention perspective. So the 3 HR trends enabling companies to transform learning, visualization, personalization, gamification are here to stay. And I hope that the information shared with you today opens your mind to new possibilities that you may not have thought of, or maybe you can think of it in a new way when it comes to engaging with employees. And the end result is that highly engaged employees perform up to 20 percentage points better and are 87% less likely to leave your company. That's a fact. And it's a fact across multiple companies, research companies, analyst firms that study this day in and day out. That concludes our webinar for today. Again, I want to thank you so much for your time and attention in sitting with me through this webinar. As I said, it is recorded and we will be providing it for download later today or tomorrow morning. But at this time, I will stay around if employees have any questions or comments or ideas that they'd like to share based on their own experience. And I'm happy to answer any questions via chat. No, you guys are a quiet bunch today. All right, let's see. Here's the question. Oh, no, just a comment. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate your feedback on the webinar. I'm glad you found it informative. Great. Any feedback on the webinar? Was it informative? I'm sure you'll get the questionnaire at the end. I'd love to have your, oh, somebody's asking a question. Great. Amy asked the question. What would the average implementation time be for this software with an organization of approximately 700 employees? And I'm guessing you're thinking about the career pathing, since that's the topic. That is a big open-ended question, Amy, and it's because we have to look at what does your talent framework look like today? You know, have you thought about what your career progression paths might look like internally? Now, we have a lot of that data already pre-built. Are you in a position to want to buy versus build? Do you want to start with your hardest to fill roles, your highest turnover roles? So you know, I would say just generically speaking, you know, when you're doing career pathing like that, it's not less than 30 days. And it's taking companies with a rolling, starting with a rolling pilot at maybe the 90th day. It can take you over a year to be fully launched. So, you know, we always take that into consideration when we're talking to you about a solution. And then have we rolled this out to specific groups of employees in a company? Yes, absolutely. We've done, like I said, highest turnover, hardest to fill. We start with companion paths, like as an example, sales is the role. We start with the high potentials, then we'll build out those companion paths, or customer service is typically an area where a lot of companies like to begin. And then we figure out what are those companion paths. So there are a lot of ways to start. There's no limitation. It's not, you know, canned software. Every implementation is different for each company. So that's just something that we would look at over time. Any other questions? We have actually a few minutes left, and I'm happy to stay if you're still engaged. Lori has a question. Oh, a companion path, so more clarification. Okay, what I meant by that, and sometimes, you know, my Boston comes out and I speak too fast. I refer to a companion path as one that shares a higher probability of matching competency. So for example, typically sales will share a lot of skills with marketing or business development. So even though under the job family, sales would be one and business development might be another one and marketing might be another one, I consider those companion paths versus comparing sales against engineering. There would be massive gaps. That wouldn't really be a companion path. Although somebody could move in that direction, it would just take a lot longer for an employee to gain the experiences and qualifications to make that kind of a move. I hope that was more helpful. Good. All right. Well, I guess we will wrap it up and call it a day. Again, thank you so much. And if you always want to talk, you have our contact information. Again, you'll get the webinar and the audio. And I again want to thank you and have an awesome day. Take care. Bye-bye.